Today I will tell you the story of the Bell Witch, a haunting so strange and relentless that it became legend. What began as whispers in a Tennessee farmhouse grew into one of the most chilling tales ever told in American history. Close your eyes and imagine Tennessee in the early 1800s. The frontier wasn't a place of comfort, it was a place of work, faith, and survival. Robertson County was dotted with small farms, each family carving a living out of the soil, isolated yet bound to their neighbors by church, harvest, and the need for mutual trust. Among them was John Bell. He wasn't a stranger to hard labor or responsibility. He and his wife Lucy had built a farm that not only fed their children, but stood as a symbol of stability. A large home, fertile land, livestock, all signs of success for that era. Their household bustled with children, Betsy, Richard, John Jr. and others who grew up with both chores and the comfort of family routines. But it's important to understand the mindset of that time. The Bells lived in a world where religion shaped daily life, and unexplained events weren't brushed off with science. They were moralized, feared, and taken seriously. Whispers of witchcraft or spirits carried real weight. This wasn't just superstition, it was part of the framework that explained life and death. So when something strange stirred on the Bell farm, it wasn't dismissed as a creaky floorboard. It was seen as a rupture in the natural and spiritual order. The first hints were almost easy to ignore. Scratching inside the walls, faint tapping at night. John Bell assumed it was rats, common on farms. But when traps were set, nothing was caught. The sounds grew louder, more insistent, coming from different rooms at once. Then came the sheets, tugged from sleeping children as if unseen hands wanted to wake them. Sometimes they woke to find their hair twisted or pulled, knots tied that couldn't have been made in their sleep. Picture the unease, a farmhouse lit by candle or firelight, shadows dancing across the wooden walls, children whispering to their parents that something was in the room with them. Nights turned restless, not just for fear of what was happening, but because it kept happening. When livestock were found oddly spooked, doors creaked open without cause, and heavy knocks shook the house at midnight, the Bells began to realize this wasn't the work of pests. Something else had claimed their home. Then came the moment that shattered doubt, a voice. At first, it was a faint murmur, like someone speaking from another room. No clear words, just muttering that made the skin crawl. But within weeks, the whispers sharpened. They carried tone, then words, then full sentences. And the voice wasn't a random sound, it interacted. The family swore they heard hymns sung by no one they could see, scriptures quoted aloud, sometimes perfectly, sometimes twisted mockingly. The voice mocked John, teased the children, and insulted guests. What made it more terrifying was how it could mimic. Neighbors swore they heard their own voices thrown back at them. Ministers visiting the house found their sermons repeated before they could finish them. The spirit wasn't just present, it was intelligent, aware, and cruel. Imagine being gathered at a wooden table by lamplight, only to hear a bodiless voice laugh, clear as day from the empty corner of the room. No matter how brave or rational you thought you were, that sound would chill you to your bones. Words soon gave way to violence. Betsy, the youngest daughter, was a favorite target. She was pinched until her skin bruised, slapped so hard her cheeks burned, even dragged from her bed by unseen hands. Visitors weren't spared. Men reported being shoved, scratched, or having their hats yanked from their heads. Furniture slid across the floor. Heavy doors slammed without wind. Once, an iron kettle was hurled across the kitchen. The witch, because by now that's what people were calling it, seemed to enjoy spectacle. The house turned into a theatre where the invisible actor delighted in humiliating and frightening its cast. What unsettled everyone even more was the unpredictability. Sometimes the witch was vicious, sometimes almost polite. She praised Lucy Bell's kindness, even promising her gifts of fruit or comfort during illness, while turning around to brutalize Betsy. The mix of cruelty and strange courtesy made it feel less like chaos, and more like an entity with its own code of conduct. The witch claimed powers beyond torment. She spoke of the future, dropping predictions that sometimes unfolded with eerie accuracy. She foretold sermons at church, repeating words before the preacher ever spoke them. She warned of illnesses and accidents that came true days later. This wasn't fortune cookie guessing, it was specific, and that made her threats unbearable. When she cursed John Bell, saying she would see him destroyed, the family didn't just dismiss it as words. They braced themselves, waiting for the curse to take shape. To live under those words was like waiting for a storm you couldn't escape. Every shadow, every sickness, every stumble felt like proof that the spirit's hand was at work. By now, the Bell farm was no longer a private nightmare. People came from miles around to witness it. Ministers hoped to drive the spirit away. Neighbors wanted to see for themselves. Even Andrew Jackson, before he became president, was said to have visited, only to be scared off after his men were harassed on the property. The witch thrived on the attention. She spoke to visitors, mocked them, revealed private details of their lives. Some left convinced she was real. Others, rattled but unable to explain what they'd heard. The haunting became part of local life. Families whispered about it at church. Farmers argued whether it was truly supernatural or some elaborate trick. But the one constant was this: no one who visited left unmoved. For all the theatrics, the witch seemed obsessed with one target: John Bell. She insulted him relentlessly, cursed his name, and declared openly that she intended to kill him. His health declined. He suffered mysterious seizures, trembling fits, and a creeping paralysis that baffled neighbors. The more he weakened, the louder the witch's voice grew, mocking him, announcing to all who would listen that his days were numbered. It wasn't just a haunting anymore. It was a siege on the family's leader, a campaign of destruction against the man who once held the household together. Watching him fade while the witch laughed became unbearable for his wife and children. In December of 1820, John Bell died. Near his bed, the family found a vial of strange black liquid. No one recognized it. When questioned, the witch's voice boomed through the room. She claimed proudly that she had poisoned him, declaring herself responsible for his death. The funeral itself wasn't safe from her presence. As mourners gathered, the spirit's mocking laughter echoed through the air, her voice rising above prayers and hymns. For the family, grief was poisoned with terror. They couldn't even bury their father in peace. This wasn't just torment anymore. To the Bells, it was murder. After John's death, the activity lessened, but the witch didn't vanish. She promised to return in 7 years, and according to the Bells, she did, haunting John Bell Jr. for a short time before disappearing again. But stories of her presence never truly ended. Locals swore they heard her voice near the farm. Strange lights were seen in the woods. Travelers spoke of eerie laughter drifting across the fields. And then there's the Bell Witch Cave, a natural formation near the farm, long believed to be a resting place for the spirit. Even today, visitors claim strange encounters there. The haunting stretched beyond the Bells. It became part of the land, a legend carried in whispers from one generation to the next. The Bell Witch story has survived 2 centuries, not as a dusty folktale, but as one of the most famous ghost legends in America. It's been retold in countless books, documentaries, and horror films. And so the Bell Witch lingers, her name whispered across Tennessee fields, her legend refusing to fade. Some say she's gone, others swear she never left. Perhaps the truth is that certain stories aren't meant to die, only to be retold. If you enjoyed this journey into one of America's most chilling hauntings, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next tale. Yours truly, Mythos, the Historian.